Hello everybody, this is Zach with Top Deck Nation coming at you today with another deck profile video. If you didn't watch our last video, be sure to check it out on our channel. That's where we did a deck profile for Quad Houndoom Mill in the XY to Fates Collide standard format. But today we are also looking at another standard format deck. And this is one that has kind of been under the radar, much like Houndoom and Superior, decks that are just kind of underrated or just aren't really played quite as much. And, this is a deck that it saw some attention when Breakpoint came out, but it wasn't really deemed as like a competitive deck just because it played, so many evolutions and it was kind of clunky. But, the deck that we're going to be talking about today is Darkrai Hypno. So, if you're not familiar, the strategy is pretty simple. This is actually a deck that you could just kind of pick up and play and, honestly learn the strategy in like 15 minutes or so. Darkrai-EX, really good attacker here, really efficient attacker. Has 180 HP, it's dark, resistant to psychic, so pretty good resistance. It is weak to fighting, keep that in mind because of Zygarde and things like that. But let's talk about the attacks for a minute here. We have this Dark Pulse attack. For a single DCE, it does 20. And then it does 20 more damage for each Darkness Energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So this is pretty interesting if you can manage to get, say, 4 Dark Energy on the board, whether it be on Darkrai or some other things on the bench like Baby Yveltal or Yveltal-EX, I should say, then you're going to be doing 80 to 100 damage already, and that's pretty nice for a DCE, right? But what we are really focusing on is this Dark Head attack. And this Dark Head attack combined with something like Fighting Fury Belt or Muscle Band, it really hits that magic 170 to 180 marker, which is pretty much just like a magic number to knock out these big Pokemon EX. So Dark Head, it says, it does 80 damage base, and if your opponent's active Pokemon is asleep, it does 80 more damage. So you might be thinking, how can we use this in standard? Hypnotoxic Laser, it's not really legal. Is there a way to actually put your Pokemon asleep that's viable? And, I think Hypno is a great choice here. Hypno, it has 90 HP. It has this ability, interesting name. It's called Goodnight Babies. Once during your turn before you attack, you can put both Pokemon to sleep, both active Pokemon. So, if I'm going against like a Zygarde EX, for example, it's going to put my Darkrai to sleep as well as Zygarde to sleep. So, automatic sleep is pretty cool. That means that when my turn ends, there's only a 50% chance they're going to wake up. So half the time, they're not going to be able to wake up and attack you. Now, that said, they could probably get out of it with something like AZ or Switch or Escape Rope. But, realistically, that's going to be kind of tough if you're asleep trying to get the right cards. And if I'm consistently using Goodnight Babies, you can see that my opponent might have some trouble. But that said, if I'm putting myself to sleep, I'm basically in the same predicament. I can't really attack. Now, in Breakpoint, there was a stadium. It was called, I believe it was called All Night Party. And I think it said once per turn, you can heal yourself of sleep, and then you heal 30 damage, I think. So it removes that sleep condition and you heal 30 damage. So that's not bad. I mean, that might be good for the math. It could definitely offset some math right there. But at the same time, I don't like that your opponent can use it. So yeah, you can hit big numbers and everything, but if you don't hit so big numbers, your opponent just wakes up and just begins to attack you again. So thankfully, in the new Fates Collide expansion, which just came out a few weeks ago, there's a new stadium called Chaos Tower. So Chaos Tower, it's similar to Parallel City and Reverse Valley, if you're familiar with those. It's those stadiums that these are the stadiums that have 2 different effects depending on which side you play them. So I do like this mechanic. I hope the Pokemon Company keeps continuing this. It adds a new kind of element to the game, a new element of strategy. But this bottom effect is what we're concerned with. It says that this player's Pokemon cannot be asleep or paralyzed. And likewise, the other, if you flip it the other way, it says they can't be poisoned or confused. But in this case, if I can't be asleep, Hypno is putting my opponent's Pokemon to sleep every single turn at no cost. It doesn't cost me, I don't have to discard cards, I don't have to put myself to sleep, etc. So, this is why the card is really good. So I think Chaos Tower brings a new level of competitiveness to this deck. And there's a few other cards as well. So, like I said, Darkrai is the main attacker with that Dark Head attack. Hypno's Goodnight Babies is going to be putting it to sleep. And then we're going to be hitting those magic numbers with, a Fighting Fury Belt and or a Muscle Band or something like that. But we also have some other attackers here. Keep in mind that Darkrai is going to be weak to fighting. So we're going to need another attacker here to go against something like Zygarde or Carbink. So that is where our good old trusty classic Yveltal-EX comes in. No need to make an introduction here. He's been legal for a good 2 years or so, and it's looking like he's going to be legal for another couple years because he was reprinted in that spring 10 that just came out a few days ago. And I think he's like a shiny Yveltal-EX in that one. But there's been so many Yveltal reprints, it's crazy. But Yveltal-EX, look at it. It's got fighting resistance, so it's going to be surviving a couple hits from Zygarde-EX and other attackers. It's got that Evil Ball, that classic attack that kind of goes back all the way to Next Destinies with that Mewtwo-EX, which had the X-Ball attack. But Evil Ball in a lot of ways is better because it already has a 20 damage base. So it is 20 damage plus 20 more times the number of energy attached to both Pokemon. Pretty self-explanatory. And then, of course, if we need to use Y-Cyclone, we could do that and kind of move our energy around to conserve it. And that's going to help against things like Team Flare Grunt. So if I need to, move a DCE away from the Yveltal to a different Pokemon, that way Team Flare Grunt's not going to knock off that DCE. But, we need some kind of energy acceleration in the deck. So Darkrai is a great attacker. Yveltal is a good attacker. But if something gets knocked out, my energy is basically gone. So that is going to be where Max Elixir comes in. So, when this came out, I think it came out in Breakpoint a few months ago, I was really skeptical. I didn't know if it was any good. Like, I like that it's a good form of energy acceleration, fits in practically any deck, but it's one of those things where it's not guaranteed. You have to look at the top 6 cards of your deck. You may or may not find anything, so it could be a waste of a card. So, I was on the fence, but I've been testing this deck, and I found that 4, you pretty much have to max it out in this deck for it to work. I think if you try to go with 3 or anything lower, you're not really going to see much success. Like, you might get 1 or 2 Max Elixirs, but honestly, I've had almost every Max Elixir get something because, you're maxing them out. And I should also say that you're playing 8 Darkness Energy. I've seen some decks that play Max Elixir with like 6, 7 energy. And, I think 8 is really the magic number. I think 6 or 7 just doesn't cut it because, half the time it's just not going to work. So I think 8 is really the sweet spot. And I've found a lot of success with it. So, you're really focused on getting a ton of Darkness Energy on the board and just kind of overwhelming your opponent. And, that said, we have a couple other attackers as well. We have our baby Yveltal, which has that Oblivion Wing attack that does 30. So that's pretty good against Night March. This is going to have a pretty shaky Night March matchup just because you are weak to lightning, and it's going to be really tough for you to keep up with that prize exchange when Joltik is knocking out your Shaymins and your Yveltals. But this gives it a little bit of an edge. It's going to be able to knock out Joltik and Pumpkaboo, but it's also going to let you accelerate energy, and that's just in case you run out of energy or something. But the other Yveltal here is something I really like. It's the Fright Night Yveltal. So I think this came out back in Breakthrough. I could be wrong. Yeah, I think it's Breakthrough, but I could be wrong. But, I kind of dismissed it. I thought it was really bad. I thought the ability was kind of pointless. Pitched Black Spear, I thought to myself, you're not going to be able to get it powered up. It's not all that great. But it's seen a lot of play in Expanded, and even in Standard, it's starting to get more popular because, a lot of people play tools, whether it be Floatstone or Fighting Fury Belt or Muscle Band, or Spirit Links, I should say. A lot of players play Spirit Links and say Alakazam, Mega Manectric, Mega Rayquaza, all these other Mega decks. So Fright Night is really, really good here. And then, of course, you have Pitch Black Spear, which does 60, and then 60 to a Pokemon EX. So it's very similar to Darkrai-EX's Night Spear. So back in Dark Explorers and Legendary Treasures and all that. So I think it definitely warrants a spot in here. Combined with Max Elixir, I can power this guy up in 1 turn. I could Lysandre up to a Shaymin-EX, and suddenly within 2 turns, I can take 4 prizes thanks to Pitch Black Spear. So I think it's really good. I think it's disruptive. And the great thing is that we play 3 Switch here. Originally, I played Floatstone, and I will say I love Floatstone in here because, if I discard the Switch, they're gone. But if I have a float stone, I could just put it on anything and then discard my hand. So in that regard, Floatstone is way better, but it is a tool. It can be knocked off. It's very situational. If I'm under a status condition, if I'm asleep or something, I can't use it. So, this gives you a couple more outs, and I think it's a little bit quicker than Switch and more efficient. But, otherwise, that's pretty much the strategy, guys. We're pretty much hitting with Darkrai and Hypno. We have some secondary attackers, but let's go ahead and look at the other cards here. Of course, for our supporter count, we're playing 4 Sycamore, pretty standard in every deck. It's probably the best supporter we have. I am really, really thankful that we have N back in the format. I think it's going to add some consistency compared to something like Judge or Shauna or Professor Birch. And it's also really disruptive in the late game because if my opponent has 1 or 2 cards left in their prizes, well, I can play N and get them down and have a much better chance of coming back. So N is good. I play 2 Lysandre just because I don't want to get one prized, but the ability, or the effect I should say, is just really strong, bringing up a Pokemon from the bench. So if like a Shaymin is damaged or something like that, really strong, especially late game. And then of course Hex Maniac. We play a lot of basic Pokemon in here. We play a lot of EXs in here. So I really don't want to have to lose to something like Pyroar or Carbink Break or anything like that. So we do need a Hex Maniac. And then of course, ability lock in general is very strong against things like Bronzong that has that Metal Links, against Zoroark that has the stand-in ability. So Hex Maniac, I think it's really good. I think it should be a 1 of in every deck, to be honest. But otherwise for our items, we have VS Seeker, pretty standard. We use your supporters. We have 4 Ultra Ball. Again, a consistency card, can search out anything. 3 Trainers Mail. I really wish I could have squeezed in a 4th Trainers Mail. I think it's great when you play it with something like Max Elixir and Chaos Tower. So, it can get your stadiums quickly. It can get your supporters. It can get your energy acceleration going. But honestly, the deck is just extremely packed with cards I think that it does need. Like I said, we have 3 Switch, 3 Fighting Fury Belt. This is going to help Darkrai, hit that magic number of 170. I think it's personally better than Muscle Band just because you're getting dual benefits here. That extra 10 damage from Muscle Band is kind of negligible when you think about it. The 40 HP, I can put it on a Shaymin so it survives a hit. I can put it on Darkrai so it survives a couple hits. So I think it's really good. I'm going to play 1 Super Rod in here because, if I run out of Darkness Energy, if I run out of certain Pokemon, like if I wanted to reuse the baby Yveltal or if I had to discard Hypno early, I think we really need that. And lastly, we have Startling Megaphone. This is a card that I always include in my decks. There's always the great debate of Startling Megaphone versus Zerosic. But honestly, Zerosic, I don't like having to use a supporter to knock off 1 card when I can use Megaphone. And then, of course, Startling Megaphone, it's really useful because there's so many cards, tool cards that are being played right now, as I mentioned before. So that is why Startling Megaphone is good. It doesn't use a supporter. It's a little bit quicker, and you can use it pretty much at any point in the game. So guys, this is the deck. This is Darkrai Hypno. I encourage you guys to check it out, tweak it to your liking, of course. This is just my way to play it. Like I said, I do like Floatstone in here. I do like a 4th Trainer's Mail. So again, tweak it to your liking. And we will have a video up soon where we will be testing this online, and I'll be able to show you a few games and kind of walk you through just kind of the mindset behind the deck and everything. But if there's any questions or comments, be sure to put them below. Be sure to subscribe. Really important. Check out our website, topdecknation.com. If you like free websites, free articles, all that stuff, that's what we're about. Everything is completely free, no subscriptions, none of that stuff. Like us on Facebook and like us on Instagram as well. But this has been Zach with Top Deck Nation, and I will catch you guys in the next one.